Hi everyone, Matt Bernier, Mike Beard, taking a look at one of the 3 graded stakes races down at Parx on Saturday afternoon. The Grade 3 Gallant Bob for 3-year-olds going 3/4 of a mile on the main track. Let's take a look at the field. It's a big field. It's an interesting field because there's names that everybody is familiar with, and we have to start with the coupled entry that is going to take the lion's share of the money. The number 1 is Petrov. The number 1A is Coalfront. Let's begin with Petrov. We had him briefly on the trail and the road toward the Kentucky Derby. The connections decided, you know what, after the Arkansas Derby, we're going to give him a little bit of time, turn him back. I thought all things considered, he ran okay in the Woody Stevens. Then they tried to stretch him out again. That didn't work. His most recent start up at Saratoga, though, I thought was good.
Yeah, I liked his last race a lot. He's that sort of classic 3-year-old. When you have one that's talented, you got to try and get him into the Derby. They did that. He doesn't want to go that far, and they did the right thing by him and cut him back in distance. Paid off big time last time. I mean, I thought he ran a great race in there. It's unfortunate for someone like me who happens to like him and thinks he's pretty good that you get him in a race like this and he has to be coupled with a horse like Coalfront because you cannot get a price on him now. They're going to bet the entry, but they're going to be betting the other half of the entry, and if you like this horse, you're sort of stuck.
Coalfront is the other half of that entry for Pletcher and John Velasquez. The H. Allen Jerkins, for one reason or another, didn't work for him. Prior to that, all you had were 3 straight victories. He was 3 for 3 in his career, and he was on the heels of a 105 buyer in the Amsterdam. Who is the true Coalfront? That would be my question to you. Is it the horse in the Jerkins that was a little bit exposed, maybe class-wise, or is it the 105 in the Amsterdam?
Yeah, he's not the 105, but he's probably not an 88 either. He's probably somewhere in between. He was a little dressed up headed into the Jerkins. He had the 105 buyer in the Amsterdam on a day, where speed in the rail dominated the races at Saratoga. He was speed on the rail, and he took advantage, and he won very easily. His prior 2 races were fine, but they weren't anything, that special. He wasn't beating good fields, and, he looked fine winning those races, but he wasn't beating anything on the racetrack. And he was a little bit exposed last time. He didn't have the speed to go with those horses. He couldn't make a run into the race, and he was easily outfinished through the stretch. This is a better spot for him, but boy, if you want him at odds on in this race, I'd go a little bit light on him. I don't think he stands out in this race.
And I suppose if anyone wanted to come to me and say, you know what, at 2-1, I could possibly get the 2 best horses, I wouldn't argue, but guess what? 2-1 is an absolute pipe dream. I think you're looking at 2-5 or 3-5 in this spot.
Yeah, I think you're looking at odds on, and I feel like the best thing about him, if you're going to, talking about playing Coalfront at that kind of a short price, is that you have Petrov to back you up because that horse can win.
Absolutely. Now, the horse in the Amsterdam that finished second to Coalfront was Excitations for Al Stahl. I have to be honest, I thought he ran just fine, but you already brought up the big problem I have with this horse. He was on the inside in a day where you had to be inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, he ran a big figure in that race, but he just, to me anyway, he just sort of sucked up for second in that race along the rail, which is where you have to be as everybody else sort of chased from the outside. Don't want to take too much away from him because he's made very few mistakes sprinting on the dirt. All of his dirt sprints are good performances. But if you're judging him off the 101 from his last race, you're probably making at least a little bit of a mistake. I want to see him prove that he's that kind of horse.
If we want to at least be kind to Coalfront and say, you know what, maybe the Jerkins is a little bit too much and for different circumstances, can you say the same thing for Ann Arbor Ready, where they tried to put the blinkers on him, and maybe he was already a little bit class compromised to begin with?
Right.
But I would at least like to think that if you're going to give Coalfront a little bit of a pass, I think you should probably do at least the same for Ann Arbor Ready, especially since he's going to be 10 times the price.
Yeah, if nothing else, you don't want to hold the Jerkins against him. He just got in way too tough there, and he couldn't go with those horses. The problem, I guess, that you have with him is he's way more exposed than Coalfront is, and he's not as fast as Coalfront is. I mean, he doesn't really have the fast race that you can point to and say, yeah, he's a graded stakes quality sprinter. He hasn't run that race yet. Maybe he'll run it on Saturday.
Ann Arbor Ready is one horse coming in from the West Coast. Another is the number 5 American Pastime for Bob Hess Jr. and Kent DeSormo. We have a Formulator Fact for Bob Hess Jr. over the past 5 years. Graded stakes races, 2 for 34. Only 8 of them hit the board with an 80-cent ROI. Having said that, watching this horse, I think there's some quality here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like this horse's races, and I particularly like that I know they haven't really tested him yet, but I like that they jumped him up and ran him against older horses his last 2 starts. He lost one of those 2 starts back. I don't think he ran terribly that day, though. I think the horses, the 3 in front of him, they're all pretty good. I mean, rock solid. They're not superstars, but they're rock solid older horses with a lot of experience and some fast races on their card. And he came back last time, and he was just way the best in that race. I think this horse is pretty good, and I just love the way that it goes. He has speed, but he does not need the lead to be effective. There are a lot of things to like about this horse.
And the other thing, too, is like you said about the field 2 starts back, the most recent field, I know Lord Simba didn't fire his shot, but he's a graded stakes winner. Yeah. Coastline is an old hard hitter. We know what he's capable of on his best day. And Distinctive B, say what you will, maybe he's always been in those sort of mid to high claiming ranks, but in Southern California, that's really kind of where the bread and butter is, where you get a lot of horses that can run 95, almost to 100 buyers. I think he's coming out of some good fields, and I personally think it's a nice thing that they've taken their time with him. Let's not throw him immediately to the deep end. We'll find out if he can step necessarily with these. Drawn just to his inside is a bit of an interesting longer price in here. That's number 4 running mate for Larry Jones. We have a Formulator Fact for Larry Jones as well. Over the past 5 years, winner last out, third off the layoff in sprint races, 7 for 12 with a 389 ROI. This horse early on, it looked like, and clearly they were going to get Derby fever.
Yeah.
They tried to stretch him out. The Lecomte was an unmitigated disaster, and then he was gone for a long, long time. Shows up at Delaware. The first start off the bench, I want to give him a pass because of the way that he started and who he ran up against. Ran up against a decent one in Blue Moon Ace.
Yep.
And then the most recent start, I think we both talked about it. I thought he was quite good.
Yeah, he was good. He got the career top figure second off that long layoff, which I think is what you like to see. Because I'm with you. I don't want to hold the first start off the layoff against him too much. He improved last time. If I'm being honest, figure aside for that race, I wanted to like that win more than I actually liked it. I mean, I think he ran fine in there, but he didn't blow me away. I loved his first 2 career starts, and I'm not so sure that I think it's gotten better for him since then. We'll see.
From a pace standpoint, the Timeform US pace projector can always be helpful here, and you can see that right now they have Cold Front on the front. The 8 is Aquamarine. Now, Aquamarine has really had some things go against him recently, whether it be the most recent start in the Amsterdam where he was eased, or you go 2 back to the Matt Winn where he's going 2 turns, doesn't want to do that.
Right.
I think his best game is when he is absolutely sent on a mission to get out there. Now, is he good enough? I don't know, but if they are content sitting off of Cold Front, I don't think that's going to work. If I were the connections, you're going.
Yeah, I agree with that. If he was my horse, I'd just tell Saez you have to go and try and make the front. Maybe he's not even fast enough. Maybe Cold Front's just faster than him and he won't be able to make it, but I would at least try to make it and then see what happens. I don't think he's good enough. To me, the only chance he would have had was if he got a little bit of rain. He does seem to like a wet track. Doesn't look like there's any rain in the forecast.
The number 3, Action Every Day, I think is a bit of an odd entrant in here because on paper, he really hasn't done anything to show me that he deserves to be here, but also considering this is going to be the second start for Anthony Margata Jr., and it kind of feels like they wanted to just get a race into him and then run him here. Coming from Pletcher's barn, he'd been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to get out of him. I think he's going to be a big price, though.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a huge price in here. And listen, maybe he's just not good enough. Maybe they're biting off way more than they can chew. He's the long shot that I'm using. Somewhere in this race, though. If mostly underneath in this race, but I'm using him. I liked him at the beginning of his career for Pletcher. I thought his first 2 career starts were both really good. Yeah. And then, of course, because he's a Pletcher 3-year-old with some pedigree, you got to run him in graded stakes races, and it didn't work out. They laid him off. I keep going back to his last race, 5.5 at Penn. To me, that was a prep race. Yeah. And not only that, this horse, he just got totally shuffled out of that race through the turn. They took him out wide at the top of the stretch, and he ran to the end. I feel like they were prepping him. Does that mean he's good enough to win this race? No, it does not. But I think this horse is pretty good. I'm going to use him somewhere.
And early on in his career, he was unbelievably green. He was really, he could run, you could tell, but he didn't know what he was doing.
He did not. His first career start was really impressive. His second, I don't even know how he won his second start. He made the lead in that race, and he just pulled himself up. And then when they came for him, he just sort of, I guess I got to keep running that, and he still won. He has some ability. This is probably not the right spot, but he's an interesting long shot.
A horse that I don't think any of us have ever been thrilled with is Sonic Mule, but at the same time, maybe he's just been thrown in really, really tough spots, and this is what he's wanted all along, going really, really short. Todd even said that earlier in his 3-year-old campaign that he's really a sprinter. We don't want to stretch him out too much.
Right.
Maybe this is what he's wanted all along. I just don't know how you can back him off of an eased, walked off kind of.
Yeah, you don't like to see that, that's for sure. He is one of those horses, though, probably better than we ever gave him credit for. I mean, he's obviously no superstar. He's run a lot. He's not that fast, but he's probably better than we gave him credit for, and his good race gives him a look in this race. I do think he's going to have to run better than he's ever run before, though, to win.
I suppose if you're looking for a big bomb, Glory Stars, you can hang your hat on the fact that 2 starts back you have a 96 buyer, but that's kind of an anomaly on his page.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's like a one-hit wonder right now. It's hard for me to believe that he ran the 96 and that he won by a nose over Bust Another. We know Bust Another's a New York bred. We've seen it in New York plenty. He's not really a 96 kind of horse.
Let's see where we decided to go here in the Gallant Bob. We're both going to go with American Pastime, the West Coast shipper. Is it simply because he's a fresh face, or are there more to it?
It's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of, I don't really like Coal Front, and so I just was looking for the best alternative to Coal Front. I think this horse has the running lines, he has the figures, and I really like his running style. I think he'll get a good trip in this race.
I know it's a dangerous thing to just marry yourself to an idea. I really think there's something to the East Coast turf horses going west and they're better, and there's something to the West Coast dirt horses coming east and they're just a little bit better than what we've got here.
That'd be right.
I think American Pastime should work out a good trip. Mike and I both go with the number 5, American Pastime in the Grade 3 Gallant Bob. Race number 9 Saturday afternoon on Pennsylvania Derby Day down at Parx. Scheduled post time, 4:14 Eastern. Best of luck.